So Google just released a new app script editor. And if you don't know how to get to this, you simply just open Google Sheets. At least that's one way, and go to Tools and Script Editor. That should get you to this script editor right here. So the old one used to look like this, and the new one now, see, you can click on this Use New Editor if you want to, and that will basically switch you to the new editor, which is this one. So let's see what's good, what's bad, and just take a look at a few different things here, right? So the first thing is the logs. Let's take a look if the logs are any better than they used to be. So if I go back to the old one, this one, let's just do a simple console log and logger log and see what happens. So I'm going to do a console log, and I'll just say hello. And then we'll do a logger log, and I'll just say hello too. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this with Command S or Control S. And then I'm going to run this function, my function, which is already selected here on top. So I'm just going to run this. And to be able to see these logs, we can go to View and Logs. And as you can see, this is already not working very well. I can see one of them, but not the other one. Let's just rerun this and check again to see if this is better this time. So these logs are terrible in this app script editor. So it took a long time, but it finally showed up. See, this is a console log, the first one, this is the logger log. Now let's try to do this in the new one to see what we get. I'm just gonna copy these two lines, go to the new script editor, paste it in here, save it, Control S or Command S. And again, this function right now is selected. I'm just gonna run it. So as you can see, that's our execution, and I got the logs a lot quicker on this one. And it also pops up right away. We don't have to go to View and open the logs. And if you wanted to open this, it's basically this execution log. So we'll see going forward if this actually works this fast for other things as well. But at least for this, that was an improvement. Now let's talk about some other differences here. So creating new files is a little different. So if you go to the old editor, you would go under File, New, and do a script file, and then basically just name the file, hit enter. That creates another script file here on the left. And then if you do another one, HTML file, and I'm gonna just call it email or something, doesn't matter. That will be my HTML file. See, now I have these three files. Now, the same thing in the new editor, you just go here on the left and click on this plus, add file, and then script, and then you do your file name. That creates another script file, and then you can click plus HTML and do your HTML file again. Very similar overall, not a lot of difference here. The thing that has changed here is that now you can actually reorder these files. So if I go to the old editor, see like this file, this email, if I wanted to move this above these other files, there is no way to do it. You're kind of stuck with this order. Now, if I go to the new editor, I should be able to do move file up or down, see? So you can move the order of these files. That's an improvement, I guess. Not a big deal, really. You're gonna have this section for libraries and services. So in our old editor, the services that we have here used to be basically you go under resources and advanced Google services. That's where you would get to that list. Now it's just that panel on the left, but it's really the same thing. Libraries over here, see that you could add in the new editor. In the old editor, that would go under, again, resources. And here you would do libraries. So yeah, so things have changed a little bit as far as their positioning, but functionality is the same. There is this current project triggers, this little icon here, or you can go under File. Is it under File? Under Edit. So it's under current project triggers. So that is now in the new editor. That would be, see right here, under triggers. And then we have executions right here that you can get to really quickly now. Different compared to the old one. I mean, it's still the same executions. You would just get it from view executions. Now you just click on the thing on the left. So the last thing I'm going to mention here as far as finding things, if you go to publish a web app in the old editor, you used to go publish and deploy as web app. I'm going to cancel that. In the new editor, when you go here, you would click deploy on top here and see you have like new deployment, and see you can select the type and select the web app. So this is the way you will basically create your web app deployments now compared to the old version. Now, the things that have changed is the way autocomplete works and syntax highlighting works. That could be interesting. If you start typing, it just automatically finds anything that matches that. So that's kind of nice. See, if I just start typing SP, I just get spreadsheet app. In the previous version, if I go here and do SP, I'm not getting anything. I actually have to type the thing or press Control Space to get the rest of this to complete. But there are also things that are not that great. So for example, when I do a period after this, I would get different methods or properties of this particular object. So you can see that methods here are these things with parentheses. So for example, like create is a method, or get active is a method, or get active spreadsheet. And it also shows the return type after the colon here, that it returns a spreadsheet here. And when you go here to select that, let's just narrow it down really quickly here. It basically auto-completes including parentheses. Now, this newer one, it seems like it's very similar to the way VS Code works. It may have just been copied from VS Code, as a matter of fact, from what I can see. But here, if I do get active spreadsheet, see, that shows up here, and I hit enter. Unfortunately, it does not do the parentheses. So you have to go in and do parentheses yourself, which I always find annoying doing in like VS Code, which seems to be the same now. And now I can actually see that the return type is like a spreadsheet after the colon. And then let's do like get active sheet, or let's actually do get sheet by name or something like that. So if we do this, I open parentheses. See, what I used to like about the older one, if I go and do something like get sheet by name, I can see as I'm typing this that this is a method, and it basically accepts a string name as the argument, and it returns a sheet as an object. In this new one, if I do get sheet by name, see, I get this spreadsheet thing. See, I have to open this and open parentheses to be able to see what this argument is and what the return is. I find that annoying, to be honest with you, but again, it might not be annoying for you. So let's just do get active sheet for now. Some things that are nicer though right now, because we're in V8 engine, we basically have all of this other notations that old editor didn't support. So for example, like the string that you do, like if you have a variable here, and then you wanted to log the string using that variable, you could basically use this backticks here. And in this backticks, I can say my number is, and here I can do $sign and brackets and put that X. And this editor will work fine with this highlighting. The old editor is not gonna do a great job with this type of stuff. It should have support for like classes if you create any classes. And it should give you some highlighting with these classes, while if I try to do this in the old editor, it will still work in the old editor too if you type. The problem is you're not gonna get any highlighting, so that's not nice. So it's hard to tell if you're typing it right or wrong as you're creating your classes or methods inside of your classes. So you'll get that extra highlighting now with this. The parts that I really find nice about the new editor is that it will also have autocomplete for all built-in JavaScript objects. So if you use something like, see, JSON parse, see, I will get the autocomplete and it kind of works. Or if I do something like new reg exp for a new regular expression, that will work. If I do this on the old editor, so that works, see, JSON parse, even though the JSON part, it didn't complete. Let's try this. So see, I don't get that autocomplete here. I have to basically just know that it's gonna work. So yeah, the support for that is great. The other part that's great is that the functions that you create will now be supported too. So for example, if I create another function here and I call it getMe5, something like that, and just keep it simple, I'm just gonna return 5 from this function. Now, if I go inside of this other function and start to type that function, it's not gonna recognize that that function exists. So I have to just type that in, the whole thing. Now, in the newer one, let's just copy this and go to the newer editor. If I go below this, let me get rid of that and create that second function down here. If I go to this function and start typing, see, it automatically knows that it exists. So with all of this, one of the biggest disappointments with this new editor is that HTML side didn't improve by much. So if I move to this HTML, Emmet is not supported here. Unfortunately, if I'm trying to create, like, say, a div with a class, I can't do any shortcuts here to autocomplete this. So Emmet is not built in, which really is not great at all. So see, we can do div, class, box. So it's a little better, but I mean, come on. You should have included Emmet in this autocomplete. Unfortunately, it's not. So it's just typing it in for the most part like it used to be. So the other part that is kind of good and bad at the same time is the new search. So I always hated the way the old search worked, but at least you could search all the files. In this new search, if I do something like Control F or Command F, I'm gonna get this search, and now I can search through this. See, it will find this, highlight this first occurrence, and it says 1 of 3. And if I enter, it goes to the second one, enter, goes to the third one. So that's kind of nice. That's something I couldn't do with the old editor. But at the same time, if I wanted to search for this word in all of these files, so let's say we also have that, I'm gonna copy it and put it in here too, right? And I want to search through all of these files, I can't. So it's only searching the current file that you're in, unless I'm missing something. So if anybody knows a way to be able to search through all the files, let me know. In the old editor, we could actually do it. So if I go under Edit and Find and Replace, see, I can do Find. And this is the annoying part. You can't really move this thing. But if I search for log, see, if I do find, it shows me that it was able to find this in these files. So if I go to code, it's going to highlight, see in the background, it's highlighting. Again, it's not great as far as user experience, but at least it's able to find it. So I should be able to create that second function here. And if I basically just go here and search for log, it should show me that there is one in code and there is another one in this ABCD file, which unfortunately doesn't seem to work in the new version. So one thing that I've noticed that changed with this new editor is in the old editor, the shortcut to add a comment, even if you're on a Mac, would be Control and question mark. In the new editor, at least on a Mac, you would have to do Command question mark to get commenting on this. There is auto formatting for the new one. So basically, if you have like things not formatted in the right way here and you want to indent that nicely and you don't want to go and manually do this whole thing, you should be able to do that by right clicking here, and here you have format document, and that should just try to automatically indent the whole thing. It also supports renaming variable across a block. So for example, if I have this X here and X here, and I want to rename that X with a different name, I can basically right click on this X, and here I can do rename symbol. As you can see, there's also a shortcut for that, and I should be able to just call this my num. And if I do that and hit enter, see, this one was automatically renamed too. Now let's test this, how well this works if we have another function. So it should probably not touch anything that's outside of the scope. So now in this case, we have this different variables in these different functions. So I'm going to go ahead and change the name for one of these. So I'm going to double click, right click, and do rename symbol. And we'll just call this X again. Hit enter. As you can see, this was changed, but this was not touched because this is in a different scope in a different function. Now, if I undo this, we should probably be able to change all of them if we wanted to. If we just double click on this and right click, and instead of doing rename symbol, do change all occurrences. So see here, it highlighted all of them. So I can just type over all of these, just hit X, and all of them are renamed. So one of the things that I always found annoying in the old AppScript editor is that it didn't recognize things in a loop. So I'm curious how it handles it now in the new editor. Let's just give this a shot. So if I just create a variable here, get active spreadsheet, and then I'm going to create another variable here, and I'm going to take the active spreadsheet and get sheets. So that should give me an array of worksheets. So at this point, if I take that sheets and run for each loop on top of that, and here I'm going to do a callback. So I'm going to do for each sheet in that list of sheets, I want to do something with it. So at this point, this sheet should refer to one of the worksheets. So if I do sheet dot, let's actually type that correctly. See, I don't get autocomplete for this worksheet. So let's see what happens if we try to do this in the new editor. So I'm going to just copy these two lines, go here, select this, and here we can do sheets dot. And now I'm going to do for each. And let's in here do our callback. So I'm going to do sheet, and we're going to do a callback. So let's see what happens. If I do sheet dot, nice. See, we get autocomplete. So now we can get a range from that worksheet. So we can now get the autocomplete without having to do a bunch of tricks. Now, this should also allow us to have proper autocomplete for our functions that we create. So if I go here, see this function, let's just call this get some data. So right now, if I go to this other function, so I did show you that we can now get this, but right now when I do this get some data, it gives us the return type here is void. So let's add some sort of arguments to this function. So let's just do something like num in here so we can pass an argument, and then let's return num plus 5. At this point, let's go back and try to do this and see what we get. So if I do get some data, open this, see it says it accepts num of type any, and it returns any as the return value. So we should be able to add some syntax to tell it that returns should be a number. And we should be able to do that by adding some comments down here. And this should support JS docs or whatever it's called syntax. So if we do something like this sort of comment here on top, we can just give some description to this. Returns number with extra 5. Something like that. So this basically is the description. You can write whatever you want in here. Then we can say that it accepts this parameter num in here. And basically for that, we'll just do this syntax. We'll do this param, and then the parameter is of a type number, and the parameter is num. This num refers to this variable right here. So if this was like x, this would have been x over here, but I'm just going to do num here. And then we should be able to also do return type by saying returns. And basically the type of the variable here would be number. So now with this change, let's try to go and type this function. So if I do here, get some data, open parentheses, see it says that it accepts this parameter number and it's going to return a number, and it has this description, returns number with extra 5, which is basically this description over here. And if you had more than one parameter, let's say you're adding two numbers together here. Let's say we have this and we have y as the second parameter, and we take this and add y and add 5 to this. So we'll say return summed numbers with extra 5 now. And what I would do, I would basically just return another line like this. So the easiest way to do this with this new editor, you can just do Control-C or Command-C in the line, and then Control-V or Command-V, and that will just paste the same one. And the second parameter is going to be a number to this y, and it's called y. So that's going to be the variable name to match this. So at this point, if I do this get some data, you'll see that now we have two parameters. One is num, the other one is y, and they both should be a type number, and this function returns number type. So you can do this to get better autocomplete for your own functions, similar to like autocomplete we get to this built-in stuff. See, when we do like get active spreadsheet, or let's actually do something like open by ID, so it has some parameters. So you can see how it says the type is string of this ID parameter, and it's going to return this type. And that's the description of that function, which is this top part we have in here, basically. And then finally, probably the last thing that's worth to mention is that you can collapse functions now. So if you have a bunch of things going on in this first function, and you don't want this to take a lot of space, you can just go over here on the left and click on this little icon, and that will collapse this whole function, so you don't have to look at all the code, and then you can open it when you want it back. I assume we should be able to also have some sort of if blocks and collapse those as well. Let's see if that actually works or not. Yep, there it is. See, we can collapse that if block. Basically, whatever is inside of that block should be in here. There it is. It's kind of weird that you have to go over this left side, but I think if I do this for a little bit, I'll get used to that. So there's also this command palette, which is basically similar to VS Code. It gives you some of these functionalities here on top. You can look through this to see if some of these are interesting to you. You know, for me, I don't care about these. You can change like the design mode of this to do like dark background thing and whatever, but it's not a big deal. So hopefully that gives you a little preview what changes you can expect from the new editor. And if you're watching some of my old videos and you're not able to find something, hopefully I'll link to this video so you can find whatever it is that you need. Other than that, it should be the same. And that should do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.